The City of Witches, Episode 39, The Last Job, Chapter 1. Like every Friday evening, Sarah was studying her parents' grimoire. Discovering new pages and spells always filled her with excitement. She loved to discover magical secrets buried by her family and almost forgotten. Every turn of pages was like a treasure chest. This time, however, Sarah was not on the way to discover anything new. The topic under her study that night was something she already knew very well: the magical clay tags. A magical artifact that combined the powers of its material, mystic alphabet, and the user's voice. By far, it was the discovery that Sarah was mesmerized by the most. She wanted to study it, perfect it, and test its limits. Assuming it had any limits. No, it had to. Everything has its own limits, but just how far were they? Sarah was dedicated to study those tags. She felt that this was the thing she wanted to perfect, and it felt cool to follow her parents' footsteps. For now, Sarah was sure of three things. 1. The longer the word she would write, the more power the tag would have. 2. The louder she would shout the spell, the more power the tag would have. And 3. The alphabet the tag used was really weird. Recently, she also discovered that the spells could be cancelled by breaking the tags. This discovery opened the door to quicker and more extreme study. In fact, Sarah had an idea for a little experiment, and she really wanted to carry it out that evening. The idea was simple, yet it could tell a lot. Just try two tags with words of roughly the same meaning, but vastly different character count. She didn't even have to be loud. A whisper would tell her everything she wanted. She would just cast the two spells and compare the effects. It was not the most effective method of study on the scale Sarah intended, but it was enough for the beginning. It would be good if Sarah found a spell that was not too destructive, but she thought that she found a good one. After all, rain couldn't be that destructive, could it? Sarah worked very hard to prepare the two tags, which she wanted to use for the test. One of them had the word rain written on it. 4 letters, quite short. On the other tag there was the word downpour. 8 letters, the longest word for rain Sarah could think of. They would provide a nice comparison, especially for casting the spells through whispering. Sarah looked outside the window to see whether or not someone was walking through the garden. She remembered how she accidentally made rain pour on Angelo when he visited her, and she really wanted not to repeat her funny mistake. Luckily, there was no one out there, so she began the test. First, Sarah decided to test the smaller tag. She wanted to keep the larger tag for the later test, because she thought it would be more awesome. She focused on the tag and felt her energy flowing through it. She pointed the tag out the window and whispered, "Rain!" The effect came instantly. A small cloud came over the garden and rain started to pour. Sarah expected it to be larger, but even such a small rain gave her some info. Sarah broke the tag and the cloud dispersed. And then Sarah pointed out the larger tag. She expected a much larger effect. She focused on the tag and her energy and whispered, "Downpour!" Just as expected, the clouds came to the sky above the garden. They seemed to come from every side of the word. However, before they gathered, they seemed lonely and small. It was not until they gathered together that they seemed of any noticeable size. But they actually seemed to have combined into one, and even then, the rain it produced was not that great. Yes, it was bigger than the previous one, but not by a large margin. In fact, Sarah suspected that she might have gotten similar results if she simply did not whisper on the first tag. But Sarah was not disappointed. It was still an interesting experiment that provided some knowledge of how the tags work. "I guess now I can test how much of a difference my voice would make," said Sarah. "And I suppose I should make 3 tags this time." Sarah broke the downpour tag to make the clouds disperse. The rain stopped and Sarah looked outside. The garden seemed perfectly watered for the day, just from the rain Sarah summoned. Just then, Sarah saw Aunt Caitlin walking out with a watering can. She must have forgotten to water her plants that day. And I thought there's going to be no rain today, said Aunt Caitlin. Oh, sorry about that, said Sarah from her room. Was I too careless with my experiments? Aunt Caitlin looked up to her niece's room. Oh, have you found some interesting spell that you wanted to try out? Yes, you could call it that, said Sarah. I have found notes on these tags that you can enchant for some effect. I thought I could test them out a little. Aunt Caitlin laughed. Oh, you remind me of how I was back in your age. I used to devour every magical recipe that fell in my hands. If you're excited, go on, but maybe next time warn me before such an experiment, as you call it. No problem, said Sarah. And maybe show me what you found. I am curious myself. Sure thing. It was getting late, and Angelo was brushing his teeth before going to sleep. Ever since his mission in Poland, if one could call it a mission, he decided to take care of his sleeping habits. He wanted to be ready for the 13th mission. For the last mission. For the mission after which he could finally go back to his family. Angelo couldn't finish brushing his teeth when his phone rang. He spit the toothpaste out and answered the call. Hello? Hello, my dear boy, what are you doing? Angelo recognized the voice. It was Mr. Ovid, the genie who saved Angelo's family in exchange for his servitude. Normally a phone from him put Angelo in bad mood, but this time he was excited. I was getting ready to sleep, but I'll listen to the new mission with pleasure, said Angelo. Oh, you seem really excited. How can I not be? You remember our deal, 13 things and I go back to my family. Yes, I remember, don't worry my boy, us genies always keep our deals. Then, what will be our last briefing about? Ho ho! I like this attitude of yours. And indeed your last gig is very interesting. However excited Angelo might have been before the call, the details of the job made him nervous. Normally, when he didn't want to do his job, he could always crunch his teeth and pull it through. This time he doubted he could even do that. That briefing truly broke him.